Welcome to the Iron Edge, the podcast all about unlocking your full potential inside and out the gym. This episode is brought to you by Cerberus Strength USA, and you can save 10% on your order right now using the code IRONEDGE. Our guest today is none other than Cody Abell, world's strongest tattooer. Thank you for coming in, man. I appreciate it.
No problem, man. I'm stoked to be here. I love you guys. Love seeing Sarah and you. And also like on the back of a weekend with like my best friends and coach. So this is a kind of I'll be honest, a weekend that like 10 years ago, I'd be like, man, it'd be cool if I could travel and train and like do sponsor stuff. So
yeah,
kind of closing the loop a little bit.
Yeah. Well, talking about that, I mean, like, let's just talk about initially, like, the podcast is all about like some more stuff outside the gym, but obviously, because I don't want it to be a case of like, oh, how did you get into Strongman? What's your favorite event? But how did you get into Strongman?
Yeah. So shortest version. So for reasons we can't get into later, I didn't get to play sports, or I didn't get to really do anything as a kid. My like life was centered around just like surviving. So became a tattooer when I dropped out of college. And then, so that was 19. And then at 24, I was like really bad off health-wise. So I had like ulcers. So I was throwing up blood. I had angina.
Oh shit.
Yeah. I had really high blood pressure and back issues. So decided to make a change, kind of got forced to make a change.
Were you out of shape? Or
Oh yeah. No, I wasn't in shape. I mean, I was like a normal teenager, but like tattooing, the culture was like work hard, play hard.
Yeah.
And like, it was like my favorite thing of like, I'm going to tattoo all day, make money. And then I'm going to eat cheeseburgers and hot wings and hang out, and, drinking. I wasn't like an alcoholic or anything, but I was fucking 20 making at the time, $400 a day in cash. So, made a big lifestyle change. I went from like 240 to 178 in about 6 months.
240.
I was big.
I can't imagine you at 240.
I got photos. I hit it well. I basically dressed like an LA Chicano. So I wore like a lot of like Dickies and pearl snaps.
That was like me at 310. I did not wear it well though.
Yeah. But 240, big.
Wow.
Lost a bunch of weight. And then 2 years, I was basically just like bro split stuff. And then where I was living in Tennessee, Rich Froning won the CrossFit Games, and he was on the cover of a magazine, and it said the fittest man on earth. And me cockily, egotistically was like, I can fucking do that. Signed up at my friend's CrossFit gym, and then decided to compete in CrossFit for 3 years. Got burnt. Well, I didn't get burnt out. Made a shit ton of progress, got really good, but was not going to make it to the games. Just wasn't going to happen, which is fine. And then we moved to Raleigh, North Carolina. And I saw the NC Strength Challenge put on by Lynn Morehouse. And I was like, and I had seen the first lightweight strongman at the Arnold a couple of years prior.
Okay.
Richie Stout, Cale Beck, all those guys. That photo of Richie doing the elevated axle deadlift, I was like, that guy looks cool.
What year were you at North Carolina?
We moved there so it was 2016.
Okay.
Yeah. And then, so I did the NC Strength Challenge. I signed up, got a coach, did it, loved the training and loved the contest, even though I was a solo 175er. And then hit the ground running.
That's the rest is history.
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's like me.
Yeah. I will say, I kept my eye on Strongman for while I was doing CrossFit.
Okay.
Because I like, you ever heard of like Rob Orlando?
Yeah.
So Rob Orlando and Cale and Richie, those were the dudes that made me want to compete in something. I was like, I want to do something. But just CrossFit was like in Tennessee with Rich winning. It was like, it was so easy to get into. But when I like put the CrossFit competing stuff to bed, I was like, maybe I'm just going to worry about looking good, feeling good. And then I saw the Strongman contest and I was like, maybe this is what I should do. And I remember I called the guy who ended up being my coach. I was like, all I want to do is make it to the Arnold and feel as though, at least for that year, I'm one of the best. And then whatever, after that, we're done. But yeah, that like, I kept my eye on Strongman a little bit when I was doing CrossFit. And I would try and use stones when I could. And we're
Like
doing farmers.
Implement it if you could.
But that's pretty much it. So.
Okay. With tattooing, I heard you say that you dropped out of college. What were you going to college for?
Oh boy.
Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah, no. So I'm very lucky. I got a full ride to college.
Okay.
A part of that was because I was really poor. Another part of that was I had decent grades. So like luckily, at least at the time, the state of Virginia had a lot of really good grants, but I was also the Virginia Theater Actor of the Year.
Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't expect you to say that.
Yeah. So
that doesn't surprise me, to be honest.
Yeah. So I got a lot from that too. So I got like an arts scholarship, but luckily it wasn't predicated on my major. They were like, you won, so here's just money for school. So between all of that, I had a full ride. I was very lucky. And so when I got to college, I felt obligated to major in theater production because I loved performing theater. So I did one act competitions, which is just like single act plays, no transitions or anything. Okay. And then I also did this stuff called forensics, which is no costume, no prop, monologues. And you just stand there and you have what's called a bubble. And it's about a 3 to 3 foot square space that you are allowed to kind of move and pantomime within, but there's no props or it's just monologuing. And that's I sound like such a dork. That is what I won I won the actor award for one act, but I got a job at a repertory theater as a teenager because I was so good at forensics doing monologues. So I also had a gig as an actor at a repertory theater in Abingdon, Virginia called the Barter, which has like a very long lineage of like actual actors that are Hollywood stars. So I went to college on a theater production major, very quickly switched to marketing and sociology because while all this was going on, I was like a punk rock hardcore kid. Okay. And I was booking shows and tours. This was during like the explosion of online streaming and just kind of subculture utilizing the internet. So I was booking bands that I listened to for like shows. And at 16, I was like signing these guarantees, so I booked a My Chemical Romance show in 2003 and their booking agent sent the contract and it was like, they had a rider and a guarantee and it was like $250 and a pizza. And I remember I signed it, scanned it and emailed it back. And then they showed up to the show and they were like, we're looking for Cody. I'm like, that's me. And they were like, how old are you? And I was like, 17. And the tour manager was like, so the contract is basically null and void because you're a minor. And I was like, yeah, but I already have your guarantee. And he was like, what? I was like, I already have the money for your guarantee. So here's your $250. And I was like, your food's in the back. And they were mind blown. They're like, we've never been paid up front by anyone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But I was so good at booking shows in the region we were at that I like was profiting. And instead of just spending it, I was like, oh, I'm just going to be a promoter and I'm going to have money set aside to cover guarantees of bigger bands. So that was the whole plan was I'm going to go to college, get a degree in something and become own a marketing agency and be a booking agent. All while playing in a band. So we're playing in a band. I'm in college and we're on tour and we get a record deal. Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Yeah. We signed the record deal.
There's so many facets that I didn't expect you to say already.
Oh, yeah, man. Well, we were like, it was the height of like metalcore and screamo. And like, not to toot my own horn, like the music is like kind of cringe, as they say, to listen to now a little bit, but we were really good. And we like sounded exactly like a band in 2004. So I remember I called my dad and I was like, hey, we got a deal. And he was like, really? I'm like, yeah. And he was like, well, what are you going to do? I'm like, I'm not going to re-enroll in college and I'm going to just go all in. Like we're going to tour full time and I'm just going to get a job somewhere that'll let me do that. And he was like, I could hear him smoking on the phone. He was like, boy, just work hard and take care of yourself. He's like, you can do it. And I was like, I remember that was the first time, like, not the first time he said something nice, but like, if I'm being honest, that was like one of the first times I heard something really supportive from an adult. And I was like, cool. So we do it. And then we're 2 weeks into our tour and the fucking singer quits 15 minutes before our set.
Oh my God.
So we leave and we're like driving home. I'm pissed. And I'm like, I fucking dropped out of college. He's like, you can re-enroll. I'm like, no, the fuck I can't. I missed the chance. And luckily I was working the counter at a tattoo shop for money. And that week, the entire staff quit. Like they were like, tell Steve he can kiss our ass. And all the tattooers walked out. And I
Why is everybody quitting? Everything.
Yeah. 04 vibes, 06 vibes.
Peace out.
But I call him. He shows up to the shop freaking out. And he was like, I'm going to teach you to tattoo. And I was like, what? And he's like, you're into art? I'm like, I'm into the arts. I'm not into art.
Well, that's going to be my question. Like, when you dropped out of college, were you drawing and all that sort of stuff? So like,
I drew as a kid, but then as soon as I discovered music, I just did drawing and did music. But when he started forcing me to tattoo, I'm like, or not force, when he threw the chance to tattoo in my lap and I had just lost 2 opportunities, record deal and a scholarship, I was like, this is an opportunity.
Yeah.
So I jumped on it and I like literally like, was like, what did I do in elementary school? So I started like, I would trace a rose. I had like a roll of tracing paper and I would like roll it out to the size of the table and I would trace a rose that many times, the length of the paper. And then I would look at the rose and I would draw it as many times as I could on the same length of paper. Then I would scrap that. And then I would do it all over again without looking at it. And I was just doing that, learning shapes again, like, 3 circles is this, and and like a square and a circle, just like literally like art 101. And luckily through hardcore and punk rock, like I had friends that tattooed already. And so they really stepped up to try and help me. And I just hit the ground running. And that was 06, 07. I started tattooing full time as a job in 2008.
Okay.
Yeah.
Damn, dude.
Yeah.
The journey.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing. I was like, I had all these questions in my head. I was like, oh, listen, this and this.
Yeah.
It has to link this way. And I was like, oh, shit. Okay, no, this is totally different from what I expected.
Yeah. My life is like so many, I'm not going to say twists and turns, but I mean, you don't realize it because you're in the thick of it sometimes, but like especially now that I'm turning 38 next week, I'm like, I've done a lot of things.
Yeah.
And like some of it is very like kind of obvious because of the trajectory, but like some of it is just circumstance, just stuff that tattooing fell into my lap.
I was going to say like a lot of this stuff, it seems to be like, honestly, Cerberus fell in my lap.
Yeah.
And it's like some of the best stuff in life seems to just come from nowhere at times,
Yeah. I mean, that's how I met my wife. Like I was still doing CrossFit and I was new at the gym and I was new to town, new to the gym, and she had just changed gyms. And the coach was like, new guy. And I was like, it's Cody. And he's like, Cody, you're going to pair with Lane because you guys are both new, which is actually a terrible idea in a gym class set or a group setting. It should be the other way around, but whatever. But I remember we got paired together and I like turn around and I look at Lane. She's like, hey, I'm Lane. And I was like, hey, what's up? Oh my God. I was just like mind blown. But yeah, like not that she fell into my lap, but it was just this weird circumstance of like, if I didn't come to the class that day, I mean, I would have met her eventually, but we probably wouldn't have gotten paired in a workout together. And yeah, man, it's just kind of lined up.
Dude. So with the tattooing stuff, to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
I know I asked you before we started recording, like you you don't have your own shop, you didn't open your own, but you started one with friends.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that played into life in terms of like what lessons did you learn and all that, how did it set you up moving forward?
Yeah. So literally at the same time that like when I met Lane, so we had both relocated to Roanoke, Virginia from various places, but I was working at a shop in Roanoke, and there were other guys in town that I would like that I had met that I definitely like aligned with, just like, you know, tattoo style and art and just culture.
What is your style, if you don't mind me asking?
Man, as not original as it sounds, like American Japanese traditional. I do a lot of like I do realism, but I do a lot of like pet real. I do a lot of people's pets, dogs and cats. But ultimately, I'm a people pleaser, and I have a really good ability of like I can do a little bit of everything.
Okay,
which that was just where I've been tattooing a while. That was how most tattooers my age were taught, is to be able to do a little bit of everything. Like now we're in more of like the age of the like hyper specialization. Is
there anything you don't like to do?
Don't like?
Yeah.
I'll be honest, where tattooing was very much like, for me, tattooing was an escape from poverty more than a chance to express myself artistically. If I'm being honest, I'm just so happy to do tattoos and make money that it's more about the types of people I'm tattooing.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So the client will dictate whether I have a good time or not, no matter what the tattoo is.
Okay.
Yeah. Cause like I've had customers that get the sickest shit ever, but they're a nightmare.
Yeah.
And then I have people that get like just what I would call just like standard tattoos. But when they walk through the door, I'm just so happy to see them. And it's such a good time that like, I don't care. As long as I'm getting paid and they're cool, like I really don't care.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then back to the shop.
Yeah.
The stuff.
So
I aligned in that way.
Yeah. I was tattooing in town and getting busy, and a friend of mine, he had been tattooing a long time in the area, and he just wanted to go out on his own. And he was like, hey, let's get coffee. I'm like, sick. So we're hanging out, and he was like, we're in downtown. He's like, I'm going to open a shop downtown. I'm like, dude, that's sick. And he was like, I want to know if you want to do you want to work there and be a part of it? I'm like, fuck it. Yeah, let's do it. And we decided to like co-invest, and we like ironed everything out ahead of time. We, in retrospect, should have, but we didn't do any contracts. I was just like, egotistically or immaturely, I was like, he doesn't pay me back, I'll just fight him.
Yeah.
As stupid as that is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just was like, whatever. I'm just going to go with it. But in retrospect, would it have like fundamentally changed the outcome? I don't think so. But like, I think the thing I learned was you can plan and you can execute on those plans really well, but you need to be ready to pivot when the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
And like, I remember when we were talking about the shop and planning everything, it was basically on the bet that the area of downtown that we were in was going to blow up in like 6 months. And that is not what happened.
Yeah.
The opposite happened.
Oh shit. Okay.
And I, full disclosure, like had a hard time sort of reconciling that. And then
from a perspective of it didn't go your way type of thing, or didn't go the way you planned?
Didn't go the way we planned.
Yeah.
And I just had a hard time reconciling like how to adjust and pivot. Mm-hmm. And then also it took about that long too. I started realizing I didn't like where we lived either. Mm-hmm. So it was like, I got faced with the fact of like, do I want to double down and like put in all the work, not the amount of work I wasn't anticipating, but like taking a different strategy while also contending with like, I don't even know if I want to live here.
Yeah.
So, but in retrospect, and I've told my old business partners this, and again, we're close, we're friends. Like when I left the shop, it was great on great terms, but like I saw them not that long. I saw them at not this PSL, but the first PSL in Roanoke last year. Mm-hmm. I was like, I feel like I dropped the ball on my part when I was here. And Jason was like, dude, you did the best you could at the time. And he's like, the shop's still open. Like we're still here. So like, you should still be proud of that.
Yeah.
So
Like you couldn't have done that bad a job.
I could have
Still
done a
around.
lot better.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, I don't think it would have kept us there, but it is one of those times where from a business perspective, I was like, I could have done so much more. Yeah. So, yeah.
What did
And
that?
doing better, more actual research into our long bet.
Yeah.
Because so I got into that deal. We started building the shop. And when the shop opened is actually the opening night of the shop at the party is the night that led to my wife and I getting together. And I remember as Lane and I are dating and, moving in together and all this, I'm like starting to express my concerns about the whole plan for the shop. And she started, because of her education background, she was like, I could have told you all of this had we been together.
Yeah.
Or if I'd asked her.
Yeah.
But I didn't know at the time. She's like, no, that's what I would have predicted. And I'm like, oh. So just getting older and like learning how to actually look into your hunches and like, for not to sound like a wannabe academic, but like looking at like aggregate data, and not just like, well, they're building a bunch of stuff. That's good.
Yeah. You mentioned off air as well that you learned to pivot and everything.
Yeah.
With your long-term coach. What was how do I word this? When you were, so take that shop, for instance.
Yeah.
You said like, when things didn't go well or you couldn't pivot, you had a hard time with that.
Yeah.
What do you think the reason behind that was? Like, it was just immaturity?
With my coach?
No, sorry. With when you were initially trying to pivot with different things with the shop, like what do you feel like the struggle was there? And then what did you learn from the coach to be able to start pivoting to where you're at now?
So for the shop, it was maturity and honestly, like it took me a few months, but I just wasn't invested in living there on an emotional level. Like if Lane and I were like, no, we want to be here, I'd have been like, okay, well, this is we gotta come up with a new game plan. And I'm going to have to double down in different ways. But as far as like that leading into like, talking about me making the coaching change.
The coaching change, but also like what you learned from that initial coach before you moved to Flash.
Oh man,
like from a ability to actually pivot when stuff goes wrong, or maybe not goes wrong, but doesn't go the way you were expecting.
Yeah, that is actually something him and I worked on a lot because I got really lucky. My first 3 or 4 years in the sport, I never had a bad show, and like. An event didn't go quite that well, but dude, I made it all the way. Like I said off air, my first Arnold, I had 2 zeros.
Yeah.
We basically knew that was going to happen just because I had competed 6 times, cut weight 6 times in a year. And he was very honest. He's like, listen, we can push. He's like, but I have a feeling it's going to end up going bad. So like, let's just get you there healthy and fit. Because that was also when I hit the point of like, oh, I don't think I want to just go to the Arnold.
Yeah.
And just be done.
Yeah.
I wanted to continue. And he was like, and we were moving to DC at the time. And he was like, let's just get you there healthy and strong. Let's get your first Arnold. And then we're going to start like the rebuild and the build. Yeah. But I don't even count that as a show that went wrong because we knew that was going to happen. But so I started in 16. The 2021 OSG was my first bad show.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Like to where like the show was bad. Not even like, oh, this event didn't go quite well. So I did 21 nationals, which I'm not going to say that's my best show, but I exceeded or matched every metric on every event, which I think the longer you do a sport, the harder that is.
Yeah.
For like a 6 to 7 event show to match or exceed your best metrics in training, I think that is difficult. And that was the year me and Hanus, it was just me and Hanus And I don't even mean in the weight class, like not to be a dick, but like I feel like we were the only in weight class competition at that whole nationals, even though that was the year like Tyler Young got his pro card. I don't know. It just felt like everyone was watching us.
Okay.
Whether it was that way or not, it felt that way and it was awesome. But me and him both were doing nationals in OSG and I took second, but I did great. And the events were so similar. It was like, yo, it's happening in Daytona.
Yeah.
And the weight cut went fine. I felt fine. Like I don't have any like, oh, this was hurt or I messed up I was just off on every event.
I get it.
To the point
I've been there.
I was off to where I knew that if we were in training, if I did every event one more time, 5 minutes later, it would have gone way better. You know, I was just a little off and it rocked me so hard that it happened on every event. And since 2021, that's from a mental perspective and actually in training is what I've been working hard on is how to deal with that stuff. And for me, it's been especially with working with my psychologist. That's been helpful. But like in training, I now try and not do the same thing as much as possible. And I mean that in like a lot of little ways.
Okay.
And I know some people think this stuff doesn't matter, but I notice it. So to me, that means I need to do it. So like I try to, again, this sounds really pedantic, but like I try and do a different deadlift bar all the time. I try and do any clean and press in a different spot in the gym. Like, I've been doing log sessions at the house outside to where I'm having to look at the sky instead of like a fixed point.
Yep.
And just not so that like my body's stronger, but like, so me mentally, I can rally.
It allows you to then be able to like adapt.
Yeah.
To
And
different
it's more
circumstances
mentally.
all the time. Yeah. Because I mean, like realistically, if your strength's the same the whole time, but you can't adapt to now you're looking at the sky or now you're looking
at lights,
at something that you can't get an easy focal point.
Yeah.
That's
and that's what I tell any of my clients that are like on the rise or at the higher level, whatever you want to call it, that haven't been to those shows yet. Like I've got a couple of clients, their first Arnold's coming up.
Okay.
And more than the training, I'm like, I'm going to just give you stuff to do that is just kind of weird.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing like crazy taxing, but like, I'm just trying to progress them linearly, doing things that make them feel a bit compromised.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Yep.
And at first that's simple stuff like just unilateral stuff, like, balance on one foot with your eyes closed in the beginning. But then like, and we all know how Strongman is. It's not a knock on the organization, but like, yeah, they say the event is this, or that we're going to use this, but let's maybe get a little more variety. Like, oh, we're going to use this deadlift bar. It's like, well, they say that, but that doesn't always happen. Well, and that again, it's not a knock; it's just the reality.
But it's a sport, and it's like, excuse me, like there's so many things that are variable.
Yeah,
like you'll go like, I think there's a lot of athletes when they move up to like a top level, especially, and I'm talking, from my experience as a heavyweight, like you go to Giants Live.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, now you've got 10,000 people watching you and you've got the cameras and the lights and it's really fast paced.
So fast.
And it just changes how you have to approach it. And I think part of my benefit when I was competing was because I was doing some of this stuff in the UK, and honestly, it wasn't as organized, I should say.
Yeah.
Like we were getting warm-ups.
Yeah.
Go to UK's Strongest Man and it's like, okay, you've got this 900-pound tire yoke.
Yeah.
Okay, it's like, okay, do we get to warm up? No.
Yeah.
So I was like jogging in the parking lot, doing lunges, jumping, whatever we can do, And then you go to UK's to Britain's, and it's like, okay, here's the yoke. Well, we thought it was going to be 1,000 pounds, but it's not. It's 800.
Yeah.
The weight of the motorcycles is different.
Yeah.
Oh, now you got to change your mental approach to that because now it's not going to be as heavy. Now you're going to be able to try and transition into speed.
Yep.
Or hey, you've got this super heavy, like, and conversely, deadlift was supposed to be 800-900 at the top, and now it's like 1,100 at the top in the car deadlift. So now you got to try and transition to that.
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of people don't. They get so sucked in and focused and locked in on this bar, this pace of contest, this
and
whatever.
there needs to be again, nothing is static. So like there is a period where people do need to do that. Like, and that's not so much to learn the implement or whatever, but it's like, something my first coach taught me. He's like, more than getting stronger, he's like, I want you used to being like training like someone at a high level. So he's like having to like wear a belt a long time, or like having your tapes thumb for a long, again, like a lot of little stuff. Like, does it really matter? I don't know, but like, it's an accumulation of stuff. You know what I mean? And like, again, like the bars, like, am I allowed to say like brand names just to make examples?
Yeah.
So like, anyone that knows anything about me athletically, like deadlifting's not my strong suit, gotten way fucking better. But when I started working with Flash, he was like, we got to work on the deadlift. I'm like, yep. So what I do is every 4 weeks, I don't ever have a bar that I always use.
Okay.
I use whatever I can get. But when he's like, I want you using deadlift bars though, I'm like, okay. If I found myself always grabbing like the Rogue one at the gym, I'm like, all right, the next few weeks, I'm going to try and grab the Kabuki one.
Yep.
Because there's little differences. Mm-hmm. And like I just want to be prepared for it physically, but mentally I need to be prepared for those little things. So I have to deal with it and like not let it ruin my whole session. And I also think that's where like a friend and a training partner comes in. Yeah. I mentioned him earlier, my friend Trey, we did the Arnold together. We had the same coach at the time. And Trey, like he made it the Arnold. So he's obviously a great athlete, but like I'm ahead of him, in the sport. But I think one, just with Trey's sort of way of being or whatever, personality, and where he's been an athlete his whole life, played baseball and he's played all kinds of sports. If something doesn't go well in training, he takes his couple minutes, reflects, and he's like, all right, what's next? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I remember even though we lived near each other, we hadn't started training together that much. And Will was like, we got to get you guys together. He needs you for the physical push. You need him to learn how to just deal with things. Yeah. And I remember the first time we worked out, I hit a deadlift PR, but it was like not enough. And it was the first thing we did. And then we had to go into farmers. And I was crying in my milk a bit. And he was like, hey, man, I need you to push me so I can be at the Arnold with you. And then that way I can push you to podium at the Arnold again. He's like, so I'm going to give you a minute, but we got to go over there and we got work to do. Yeah. And I was just like, there we go.
Well, I think that's another part of the problem. Like there's so many athletes who will go to a contest and they might have a great press. Like say the press is first. They have a great press. And then event 2 goes bad. Yeah. And now all they're focusing on is event 2, not a case of like, okay, what do I do here? Yep. Whereas like one of my best ever performances was, there used to be a contest in the UK called Body Power. It was like a big expo. Yeah. And they had a strongman contest there every time or every year, I should say. And we'd block press and I completely fucked it up. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And I sat back and I did that. And then I went and I won yoke. Yeah. I was like, okay. What do I need to do to win the contest? Yeah. And like I looked at the points and all that sort of stuff. I was like, okay, I got to win every fucking event. Yeah. And that's what I went and did. And that's all I focused on. Yep. I was like, okay, I got to focus on this event. This is what's important now. Yeah. And I think there's so many athletes who will get, like there was one of the guys that competed at Scotland's Strongest Man with me who screwed up one event and that's all he focused on for the rest of the day. Yeah. And he was more than capable of winning. Yeah. And the whole contest went to shit.
And even if, I think so, like 22 OSG, first event's a Viking press, which at the time, that's probably the last press variation that would be good for me, even though at the time I was a solid presser. Now I'm like a really good presser,
Yeah.
but at the time, like that's not especially with the rule, they were doing the push press only.
Yeah.
Like, that's not great for me. But we didn't, as far as the implement stuff itself for the Viking press, I didn't make the right calls on how to train it.
Okay.
In terms of the equipment I had, but didn't get the result I wanted. And I was bummed. And I wouldn't say that I did carry it a bit. I'm not going to say that it hampered my ability because I still did solid on the other events. I mean, I still didn't make the finals, but I still did solid. But I can guarantee that it hampered my ability to have kicked in the extra gear on some of the events. So I was able to like do like, you know what I mean? It definitely hampered me from possibly tapping into something a little extra.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So to roll it back a little bit, you mentioned like close to the start of us talking that you didn't have any ability to do sports or stuff like that. Do you mind talking about that a little bit and then how it affected
Absolutely.
either strongman or life in general?
Yeah. You're going to need to prompt me. There's a lot. So prompt me. I'm an open book, but like it helps to give me like what's your question? Just start with a question.
Yeah. I mean, like okay, why couldn't you just do sports, you know?
So
let's just start there. That's the easiest way to go.
Yeah. So, I grew up as a single parent household for the most part. And the truth is my mom was like very mentally unstable and unwell. I can't say for sure, but almost certainly manic depressed. And the older I get, I'm pretty sure she was maybe like schizophrenic.
Okay.
So just to give an example of the erratic nature, I don't know how school is in Scotland, but like by 6th grade, which is like middle school, I was in my 12th school.
Wow.
Yeah. So, so she, when I was born, she was real bad off. So my grandparents had custody of me, and I was the first year or two, I was basically raised by them and my aunt.
Okay.
And then she met my first stepdad, who I consider my father, and my grandparents loved him, and they were like, okay. And they gave me back to my mom, but, they were always like splitting up and all that, you know. She would kick him out or we would move out. But basically my mom would just go in waves of like having her shit together really well to where like that was the thing is she was insanely capable.
Yeah.
But she was like a total grifter and chameleon. So there would be like months where she like, I remember for a while, she was like one of the best. You guys know U-Haul, the moving company?
Yeah.
So my mom was like for a time, like a regional manager for U-Haul in Florida and was really good at it. And she was still like fucking up during that time, but it was like kind of it was kind of handled. So like when she would go on benders, it would be like on her off time. So at like 6 years old, like 6 to 8, I was like, I'd wake up and my mom would just disappear for like 3 to 4 days. And I would like get up, make myself food, go to school. Cause luckily, whether she was doing it on purpose or not, we always tended to live really close to the schools I went to. Okay. So I'd walk myself to school, come home. And it was the 90s. So I would, a lot of microwavable dinners. And then she'd show back up like nothing happened. And that was just like my life. And, like I had family members that would check in on me and they would do their best, but we didn't have email or internet.
No, so like different back then.
Not hearing from your nephew or your son or your stepson, however you want to put it, or your grandson for like a month or two at a time was totally normal. Not at all. But, so But then she'd like really fuck up and get arrested or get fired, or like we moved in with so many boyfriends on a whim. And it kind of would play out the same every time. We'd move in and she'd be like, oh, he can't wait to be your new dad. He's going to take you to do all this stuff. And then like, you know, whether it's sometimes, I'm not lying. We moved in with a boyfriend on a Thursday. I enrolled in a new school, went to school on Friday. Saturday night, they get into a fist fight. Cops get called. We have to go stay at a hotel. Monday, I am withdrawn from that school.
Holy shit.
And we moved back to where we had just left. And that happened multiple times. So all of that came to a head. It came to a head twice. The first time was, so while all this is going on, her and my first stepdad, my dad. So when I say dad, that's who I'm referring to.
Yeah.
They finally get a divorce.
Okay.
But he's still calling, checking on me, coming to get me on weekends when she would let him, be my dad.
Yeah. Where was he based?
This was all in Florida.
You? Okay.
But my dad, where he was a telecommunications expert, he did a lot of work overseas. So he worked in Kosovo during the Civil War. He worked in Nigeria. We actually lived in Honduras for a couple of months during the drug war when he was contracted by the DEA through the Honduran government. I don't know why the fuck we were there. It was really
probably not safe.
No, it wasn't, because we lived in town in like a little apartment amidst the pueblos. And like, meanwhile, his friends lived in these like compounds. And I remember asking him, like, Dad, why does Steve have like a mansion and an armed guard? And he was like, oh, they're just showing off. Like, they're making themselves a target. We're staying in town with people, and like we're not standing out, even though we're white Americans. But things came to a head twice, and they kind of are linked. So after Honduras, actually, my dad took a 2-year gig in Cairo, working for a federal agency.
Okay.
And he would call me about once a week. But things between my mom and I were not good, because I was starting to kind of realize like I don't think my life is normal.
How old were you at that point?
About 8.
Okay.
And I was seeing a doctor at the time. And one day we went to an appointment, and we went to an office that I had gone to before, but only once. And we finished my like visit with my psychologist or whichever one can prescribe you medicine.
I think that's a psychologist.
Either way, they were prescribing me antidepressants and Ritalin.
Holy shit. At 8 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Antidepressants at 8?
Huh?
Antidepressants?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I was on Prozac and Ritalin at 7 years old. Whether I needed to be or not, we'll never know, but I was.
Okay.
Which, from what I understand now, is a very bad combination. But it was the 90s, and that was like the height of that stuff. But
trial.
let me be clear. I'm not against medication at all.
Right.
But there was a lot of things that should have happened before I got prescribed. But anyway, go to the visit. We have the normal visit. And my mom like puts a bag on the ground. And she's like, you're going to stay here a while. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, I think you need to stay at the hospital for a while.
Damn.
And I was like, why? And she's like, well, we're not getting along. And like, I think you and I need space, but we need to work on our relationship. And I'm like, oh, so we're staying here together. And she's like, no, I'm going home.
Oh my God.
You're staying here. So I was put into a private youth health facility for 3 months. And my mom didn't come to any of the appointments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The entire 3 months.
Yeah.
Wow,
she came to visit one time.
Okay.
To drop off stuff. But then this was also when people realized that I hadn't learned how to read. And because we were changing school so often, I was able to like guise it.
Yeah.
You know? And but she didn't come to any of our like what were supposed to be like basically like parent-child therapy sessions.
Okay.
Missed out on all of them. Came and dropped by. Just some stuff of mine for me to have. And they were like, oh, this is not appropriate material. It was like some comic books or something. But that night when she left, they like walked me into my room. And let me be clear, like the facility itself was actually nice. It wasn't like One Flew Off the Cuckoo's Nest. It looked more like almost like a dorm.
Yeah.
But I lost it. And I took the chair and I like threw it through the window. It was like a little window. And I was like trying to get out of the window. And they like nothing, as far as the staff there goes, they were nice. They have nothing like that.
Yeah.
But the like orderly or whatever you want to call him, he like very nice. It was like, please stop, dude. You're going to hurt yourself. And I was like, let me the fuck out of here. And I actually like went after him with the leg of the chair and like just started wailing on him. And then they like put me in another room that I didn't destroy. And then, so I'm in there 3 months. I saw my mom like once or twice when she tried to drop stuff off. And the second time she stopped by, she had a guy with her. And I was like, who's that? She's like, oh, that's my new boyfriend.
Oh boy.
So I don't know how, but my grandfather found out. My grandfather called my dad, somehow found a way. I think he called my dad's office in the States and was like, I need to know how to talk to Dave. And called my dad. And then basically them working together via phone, they basically like approached my mom over the phone. They're like, you either get him out of there, or my grandfather was either going to show up to the hospital and things were going to get real weird, because my grandfather was like a total gentleman and like, but he was also like
no BS.
That generation, of like, and like my family's fucking crazy, man. Even the normal people are like, there's something wrong with us. So they're like, you either get him out or we're getting him out, and it's not going to be good. Yeah. So she got me out. And again, that's when they found out I couldn't read. And that's also when I found out my grandparents still had custody of me, technically.
Oh, okay.
What?
So they'd never done the paperwork when you gave back. Okay.
So like a few months later, I go to do my normal. I would always do every summer with my grandparents. That next summer, a few months later, my grandfather is like, what if you stay with us? And I love my grandparents. I mean, they were awesome. But I was like, no. Because, he was my grandparents and like, I had a lot of freedom, but it wasn't as much freedom as I was used to. Yeah. Because I was so neglected. Yeah. But I was like, no. But one night I heard a phone call and I picked, landlines. Yeah. Oh yeah. I like slowly picked up the landline, and it was him and my mom arguing. And my grandfather's like, he's staying with us. We're enrolling him in school. Like, you cannot take care of him anymore. And I was like, oh. So I'm kind of reconciling that, trying to figure out what's going on. And then a couple of days later, it had to have been either a Sunday or a Wednesday, because my grandfather was at church. And she knew that he'd be at church. So she calls the house. I pick up. She's like, I'm coming to get you tonight, midnight. I'm like, okay. And she's like, just be ready. So I like wake up and she gets stuck into the house. She's like, we got to go. And I'm like, okay. We get in the car. And I'm thinking we're going back to where we lived. And she was like, I was like, I don't know how, but I was like, wait, where are we going? She's like, we're moving to Virginia. And I was like, wait, what? And she was like, we're moving to Virginia. And she's like, I'm getting married. And I'm like, to who? And she met a guy who eventually would become my stepdad, who is my brother's father. Okay. My half-brother's father. Yeah. But I guess the legal terminology is she kidnapped me.
I was about to say, technically, I guess.
It's kidnapping.
Yeah.
So we get to Virginia. that night, I guess she had called my grandparents after we were on the road. She was like, he's with me. We're moving to Virginia. And because of the way my grandfather worked, he didn't call the cops. But I didn't talk to them for like almost a year.
Wow. Okay.
Because one, she didn't let me, but two, like, I think she was afraid she was going to get charged with kidnapping.
Yeah. No doubt.
But that was when the reality of like my surroundings had really settled in of like, this isn't normal. Because because you only know what you see. It's all proximate.
Yeah.
Right.
So I was just like, oh, this is just life. And I was like, yeah, this is just how life goes. It's like, no, it's not. But the upside to all of that is when we moved to Virginia, I stayed there. And that was the first time we stayed anywhere.
How long did you stay in Virginia? For the rest of your
From
like,
there on.
Okay. Yeah.
So like 11-ish.
Yeah.
Fifth-
Basically
into
until you
fifth
left
grade,
home,
yeah.
and then you started.
Sixth grade, I said, was my 12th school.
Yeah.
That was the 12th school.
Okay.
And then we were there. And then the 3 friends I made the first day of 6th grade in Marion, Virginia are my best friends to this day.
Wow.
We text each other every day. And we're all been the best men in each other's weddings. And we've like lived together multiple times. Like the 3 people I met in 6th grade that day, we are best friends to this day. So, and like, if I had to go through that for them, to have them in my life, because the chaos did not stop.
Yeah.
Let me be clear. But we were at least there in
Yeah.
that place.
And you're like, you're solidly in somewhere now.
Yes.
You're settled
Yes.
to an extent.
And even though the chaos didn't stop, that was the first time I had like a direct network of people around me. And things just got progressively worse, as they did always with my mother and my family. Because I was there longer and longer, I had more people that were around me. And like Alex and Tyler and Cody's family, my other friend, one of the friends of Cody's, so we call him Jones and I'm Cody. But Jones, Tyler, and Alex's family all took care of me. And like, that's where I spent Thanksgiving. That's where I spent Christmas. And then like when Rhonda would go on a bender, or like we'd get into, me and my mom had like some actual scraps, and I'd get kicked out or I would just leave. Like I could just walk to their house.
Yeah.
And I'd stay with them. And so like that is I'll take that.
Yeah.
So
how do you feel looking back now on everything, on like the entirety of your childhood? How do you feel it? I was gonna say, how do you feel it set you up for life in terms of like I'm trying to even think how the best way to put it. From a perspective,
the good and the bad.
Yeah, from a perspective of like, did it motivate you more? Did it, to deal with shit?
I will say it, not even in the like motivational way, but I got so accustomed to things being very difficult for me. Like, and it's not actually embarrassing, but there is a little bit of embarrassment, but like the learning to read thing.
Yeah.
Like instead of learning to catch a ball.
Yep.
Like that was me learning to read.
Okay.
And so I got used to things being a struggle, which there is some benefit to that.
I think there is.
But I think even more so is what led me to learning to read was a teacher. Very emotional.
Yeah,
I had one teacher who really liked me and like gave a shit. She was like, "Can you start coming in before school or staying after?" And I was like, "Let me talk to my mom." And I was able to start staying after a few times a week. And she, for free and just because she cared, tutored me after school a couple times a week. And lack of a better word, coached me on how to learn how to read. Like actually learn how to read.
I think it's super important. I don't want to say this from a perspective of like, a child being in a less than ideal situation, but I just mean like, I think it's super important for any child well off, like, not well off, whatever circumstance, to have somebody advocate, invest.
Yeah.
And this part of me is like, okay, it's super important for a parent to do that.
Yeah.
But there's also a part where it's a case of like someone who's not a parent, who doesn't have a vested interest.
Yeah.
Actually like investing.
Yeah.
To better you.
Yeah.
You know?
And that was so huge for me. Cause like, I remember the day where I like, it sounds like, again, like nothing, but like I sat there and I read a whole book by myself to her and she lost it. She's like, you're doing it. You did it.
Yeah.
And as melodramatic as it sounds, I think that one interaction set me up to, instead of pushing people away that wanted and were willing to help or could help, it taught me that like to seek that out.
Yeah. And I think that's,
and like, that is, I think like anyone I work with in any type of role, coach, whether I'm coached by them or whether I get coached by them or I coach them or they're consulting me or whatever, like, and this has a good and a bad side to it, but like, I am so open to hearing somebody's thoughts on something, good or bad. Now, how they frame it and the context means a lot, but like, I want to hear it. Like, yo, whether we want to call it accountability or just like, what's your perspective? Like, I know the value of that. And like, also like, yes, someone in being invested in you is so empowering. And like that reassurance and care, like ideally everybody's got a base level of that from their family, but when you don't, you're adrift.
Yeah.
And that was like pivotal for me, because again, I didn't get to have that with a coach.
Sure.
And like learning to catch a ball, it was learning to read.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was, changed my life and like really flip the script.
Yeah. And what I was going to say was like, I feel that there's so many instances in life where it's so easy to just pull back, and not share or not, maybe not even as much as not share, but like not, like just hold yourself back and not be open to either conversations or help or whatever it may be. And that was like a big thing with like when I lost my dad, was that I really I feel like I really regressed.
Yeah.
From a perspective of like, okay, now it's like, he's not here. And obviously my mom's still here. And I see her in a couple of days when we go home. When we fly to Europe tomorrow. I still have my brother and all that, but there was definitely a part of it where it was like, it's me. Like, I got to do this myself now, you know? And especially again, moving stateside, I'm like, it's just me.
Yeah.
And I think going through something not dramatic, but like hard hitting and that, it's somewhat detrimental.
Yeah.
It changes how you actually approach life.
Yeah.
And how you perceive different things, how you react to different things. Yeah. And then I think being able to maybe step back from the situation at times and be like, okay, well, this person is actually trying to help me. Yeah. Maybe I should be open to it, Yeah. And that was, even now, like with like being married. Yeah. Like I'll come home after a crappy day and Michelle's like, oh, hey, what's going on? I'm like, don't worry about it. It's all good. Yeah. And she goes, no, it's not. Like, let's talk, Yeah. And I think that's being able to open yourself up to that. Yeah. Changes a hell of a lot.
Yeah, man. And it's this weird push and pull, right? Like I'm not one of the I'm not like a sort of pull yourself up by the bootstraps type of guy per se, but like it's this weird balance of like, there are things you do need to go through alone, but what you can't let that do is you can't let it callous you to where you are only pushing people out.
And I think that's the hard thing to overcome.
Yeah.
You know, that was something like, again, for me, like losing my dad, like I almost developed this coping mechanism, maybe not coping mechanism, maybe the wrong word, but like this like mindset of, I personally think it's a abandonment complex.
Yeah.
Whereas I had so many relationships where I'd be like, this is not working, like get out of it.
Yeah.
And it was fine. There was nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm happy with everything that happened because now I'm where I'm at
Yeah.
now. But there was so many little things where it's like, you know, you self-sabotage.
Yeah.
You know? And,
Yeah.
and that was like a big part. And it took me a long, long, long time to actually just figure out that that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No, and like, I mean, to maybe make an analogy that, you know, I'm sure everyone that listens to this at a minimum lifts weights. Maybe they don't do strongman, but like trying to become a better athlete, you need to get comfortable training alone and being able to do what you are either quote told to do or need to do in the gym on the day by yourself. But if you do that too long, you get thrown into a contest or just a training group. Like, well, now you've gone too far down that road and now you're like thrown off and you can't adapt. And
so it's funny you say that because I trained with crews a lot.
Yeah.
And then I started training alone. Like after I left Shaw's, when I was training with him in Colorado, I started training by myself.
Yeah.
And then I opened the gym, but I was still training myself.
Yep.
Train myself here. And then now when I go, there's times like, you know, a couple of years ago, going to Lightning to train with people.
Yeah.
And I'd have terrible sessions.
Yeah.
Because I'm so used to just being me.
Yeah.
You know?
And doing just all the little stuff and just like, honestly, just sharing space that you normally are completely alone in. Like that is different.
Yeah. I mean, if I'm honest, like I'll go to the CrossFit gym now. Like I'll train there because it's close to the house and go there a couple times a week. And it's like the old competitive fire comes back. So I'm like, oh, I gotta be on.
Yeah.
You know? But then I love coming in here to this gym and in the warehouse and just being like, it's just me.
Yeah.
And it's great, you know?
Yeah.
But being able to have both those sides of the coin.
Yep.
That's the important part.
Yeah. It's not, well, it's also, again, it's not static. Like there's times in your life you need this, but that doesn't mean that's all you're ever going to need.
Yeah.
You know? And again, to this whole conversation, pivot, reading the terrain and like what needs to be done now for what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And how is that different than what I've done?
Mm-hmm.
And like acknowledging the reality, you know, like, when I was with the same coach from 16 until March 24. Is that what this year we're in?
Yes.
Yeah.
Give me a second.
August 16 to March 24, I was with the same coach and, just like, okay, like we're getting there, we're gaining ground, but I like started thinking about not the changes I needed to make in terms of programming to elicit the changes in me as an athlete, but like, what are like the core changes that may actually mean that I need to make a coaching change?
Okay. Yeah.
Cause like the programming did need to shift, but like, I knew that was only a part of it.
Yeah.
And I was very open with Will, like about like, we got to change the programming. And he's like, you're right. Absolutely. And then I was like, but I think I need more of this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And before I said a word, he was like, he's like, then it's time. He's like, cause I can't, or I'm not able to do that.
Yeah.
And I kind of knew that, but I also owed it to him to tell him all that.
Yeah.
Cause like, he's my best friend.
Yeah.
Like we're not coach, like him and I had like blown way past the coach athlete thing.
Yeah.
You know, like he's who I called, like when we got approved for the house loan, but then he's the second person I called when my dad died after Lane.
Yeah.
You know? And I owed it to him to not give him a chance. That sounds weird, but like to just be like, hey, it's not just the programming.
Like, almost like justify it.
Yeah.
So to speak.
But I'm like, this is what I think I need more of. And he's like, you're right. and this is just the end of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And what I had to contend with before I even made the final decision on wanting to work with Flash was not only is the programming going to be different, but I'm not going to be able to navigate, even though Flash and I are close.
Mm-hmm.
We competed together. We talk all the time. We're in a bunch of group chats together. But that relationship may not ever be the same as me and Will's. Like, it's just, but that's not bad. It's just different.
Yeah.
And I have to contend with that.
Yeah.
And I've got to be prepared for how that's going to feel. Even though Will is still in my corner as my friend, it's different.
How do you feel you adapted to that? The difference in the style and
the programming was on the whole exactly what I was expecting. There was way more conceptual crossover than I thought there was going to be. A lot of little things that I think about 60% of strongman athletes, but I don't even, what is it? Why? Why are you spending an extra 10 minutes doing breath work?
Dude, there's so many things like that.
But conceptually, there was a lot of crossover, but it was even though I'm on a team now, with three of my three friends and three business partners, the first few months I felt, even though I was Will's almost only client, definitely his highest level client, but Will also didn't advertise online.
Mm-hmm.
No one knew who he was.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those first few months, I felt more alone than ever.
Yeah.
And even though Flash believes in me and we're killing it, I just felt very isolated. Even though we weren't all doing the same stuff, but I would send Ross and Andrew screenshots and I've ran that particular thing, but on this implement.
Yeah.
There was a lot of that, which was cool, but I felt really isolated. And I just, as cheesy as it sounds, I also started working with my psychologist, Amelia. It is one of those things where I was I've got to go through this to not reshape, but just to grow into that next phase. And that's going to feed into me, if an event doesn't go well, or fuck it. I'm not going to hold back. Especially the last few months, my mentality has been hard I've been having not a hard time. It's been weird for me because Flash told me this on the phone. I don't know when this is coming out, before or after OSG, but he's like, you're the hunted. You're not the hunter anymore. And you need to change your mindset for the sake of stress.
That's hard.
Because I'm texting him stuff. I'm because everything's, we've had some hiccups. Let me be clear, but I'm if I can do this now, if I'm doing this and I'm doing this now, that means everyone else is doing more and faster. Mm-hmm. And he was like, they're not. He's like, you're doing it. And I'm having to sort of contend with that. And luckily my Amelia is helping me with that. And me accepting it, because even though I'm on 2 Arnold back-to-back podiums, I've always had a chip on my shoulder of I've got to work harder because I'm nobody. And which that. Again, just like what we've been saying, if you want to be a competitive athlete, you have to have that.
I fully agree. Yeah.
To keep some of that.
Yeah. To make sure to keep yourself accountable, sleep, eat, stick to what the coach tells me what to do, all that stuff. But again, it's got a double-edged sword to where it's going to start playing games with you of when you step up, you've got to ascend into that next phase.
Yeah.
To where you're walking in with confidence, but the type of confidence that enhances your ability.
Yeah. So I think
to wrestle and tangle with, we're hitting a log in December that not a lot of people are going to be able to play with, just like we're talking about deadlift bars.
Yeah.
walking into it, one, physically prepared, obviously, but mentally being ready to be like, this is going to feel a little different.
Yeah.
But I'm strong enough and capable enough. I'm going to be able to figure it out on the fly.
Yeah, and I think what helps as well is like, like to touch upon the perspective shift.
Yeah.
Initially, like that's a really good analogy. It's like, oh, like you're the hunted, not the hunter. But there still has to be a certain perspective of like, like say it's like, you're the wolf climbing the hill is always hungrier than the wolf at the top.
Yes.
Well, now you got to change the perspective. Be like, I'm on top of the hill.
Yeah.
How do I stay here? What do I need to do to stay here?
Yeah.
How do I keep pushing hard?
Yeah.
And then the confidence is actually really good because that's like when I started competing more and more and more.
Yeah.
And doing like multiple shows a year.
Yeah.
It's like you almost become robotic.
Yes.
Or once, and the thing that, helped me, I think, was that I became like the best in Scotland.
Yeah.
And I was aware that everyone knew it.
Yeah.
So I remember like I walked into a contest once, and I actually found this out after the contest, but there was one of the guys who was like, he and I were like very level.
Yeah.
He would pit me one time, and the next I would get him. But I was starting to take that stride past.
Yeah.
And apparently this guy was all laughing and joking, and one of my buddies walked in first, and he sees them all laughing and joking, blah, blah, blah. And then I walk in, put my bag down, and he sees me and instantly fucking stops.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh shit. It's almost like,
yeah,
like he already, like the way I put it in my head is like, he knows he's getting second.
Yeah.
That was always my mentality.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm here for first place, and everybody knows I'm here for first place.
Yeah.
And that what pushed me. But then conversely, when you go from that level, at Scotland's Strongest Man or whatever level, to the next level, now you got to change it again.
Yeah.
So now you're like, okay, now I have to refocus into the hunter again. You know?
Well, it's weird. It's this, again, it's a level up of like, all right, well, all right, now I'm not doing the Scotland circuit. I'm doing the Giants Live to get to Worlds. So it's like, I've got to use my confidence ability to work harder than ever to get to the next level.
Yeah.
And that's in and around, like, that's what Dan and Amelia are helping me with, of like, because again, like everything that Dan and all of this is not just this like wish casting or like speaking to potential. Like Dan is metric driven.
Yeah.
Like
I think you need to be in this day
you
and
have
age.
to.
I think maybe
potential's great.
10 years
but
ago,
like,
it didn't have to be this way.
The outcome of a contest has to be metric driven or the desired outcome.
Yes.
And like using like Dan telling me like, perfect, great, this, that, like using that to just be like, I am strong, capable, and hungry enough to get what I want. And but like, if I keep working hard, I'll also be able to kick it into that extra gear.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it is a balance of like, I am good enough and strong enough to do this, but also because I can handle it.
So then to talk about and come full circle a little bit with the whole outside the gym stuff as well.
Yeah.
How do you feel some of those mentalities age you from the business perspective? Because obviously, like, you've got the experience in the tattoo shop and growing that, growing clientele and having to do like the hard shit where it's like, hey, I need to do, X amount of days a week and to build a clientele and all that sort of stuff, to where now you're almost like not back at the start, but like you're fledgling business type of thing. And you're slowly growing with the Stronger Together stuff. Yeah. For me, I think it's really important to struggle initially with some of that stuff alone, like Cerberus, like doing everything with Cerberus USA for, God, 5, 6, 7 years, I think. Oh, God, even maybe even more than that. Yeah.
5, 6, 7, 8.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, I was like, God, I'm trying to think how many years. Yeah. But yeah, like we're talking, like my warehouse manager's been with me 4 years this month. Yeah. And I've had the company for over a decade now. Yeah. But doing everything alone, like you had to almost learn it all. Yeah. So how do you feel everything has come full circle for you?
again, like me learning at a very early age that for me personally, and again, this isn't me being like, everyone needs to struggle, everyone. But it's like, for me, I've learned very early age. One, I'm a brat, and I'm only going to go all in on stuff I'm into.
Yeah.
But that neglect in my early life gave me that ability, ironically. But anyway, I learned very early, like if I want to do well at something, I've got to bury myself in it, and I have to understand it, like at least at like just a very fundamental level. I don't need to necessarily know every in and out, but like I need to understand like the core concept very precisely.
Yeah.
And I have to like learn the various roles and things with it. And I've said this repeatedly amongst friends. I say competing as a strongman is not a job for me.
Yeah.
I would, to be honest, I would, a couple of years ago, I would say otherwise, but that was a lie. I would love to be a full-time paid athlete, but it's not. But like with Stronger Together, I lost my train of thought. Like me getting used to doing everything alone and like trying to build it from scratch was like kind of just par for the course for me. But what I've said this repeatedly in confidence, I'll say it in public finally, the way I've navigated myself, not politically, just the way I've navigated Strongman as a person within Strongman is, I mean, I don't have like different faces per se, but like my experience in the tattoo industry has insanely informed how I navigate Strongman. And I say continually, like, if I would have navigated tattooing in that way, my career would be a lot different, good or bad.
Yeah.
But it would be very different. And when I started doing the coaching stuff, when it was just me, before it was actually Stronger Together, like that was the whole plan. Cause like a lot of my life, I mean, other than meeting my wife, being with my wife, my default has always been, I'm going to do things alone.
Yeah.
And so
do you struggle with that, with switching that side off?
Yeah, but it's not necessarily the like, let me do it on my own. It's not that I am against getting help. I seek that out. Again, that teacher that helped me like was pivotal for me. So I'm so open to that, but I'm so used to having to do it alone that I don't expect people to want to help or able to help.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah. And so when I started coaching a little in 2020, but then 22 Arnold, that's when Stronger Together, the team program, came out. And the whole plan was to build it up to where it was just, a popular year-round strongman training program. And it was just going to be me and my laptop. And I'd have a couple of one-on-one clients. And the one-on-one clients kept growing and the team keeps growing. But then like a year and a half ago, 2 days within one another, Ross and Andrew both hit me up about like us working together, like doing things under the same banner. And because now I'm learning to trust myself more, I'm not going to say I base every decision on my initial gut reaction, but when both of them brought it up within 2 days of one another, I got butterflies.
Yeah.
Like as Lane, my wife, love you. They're my boyfriends. She's like, how are the boyfriends?
Yeah.
I got butterflies. I'm like, oh man, me and my people I really care about doing something together. Like that means a lot to me.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, when we got the ball rolling, like I probably overdid it, but like, dude, I think we had like 5 FaceTime calls. Oh. And I was like, a classic me. I'm thinking about things that are still in the works, but we're not quite there yet. And like, they're like, yeah, but like, we're not there yet. So like, we don't have to get too in the weeds yet, but, it just taught me that for me, I do have to do a lot of work on my own to understand it, so I can then communicate to people properly. Like, this is where these are my blind spots. And what can you, not how to use them, but like, I do need your help on this.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's being able to explain things in simple English.
Yeah.
There's like, like there was one of my chemistry teachers in high school was like, if you can't explain it in layman's terms to someone who has no idea what this is, then you don't fully understand it.
Exactly. And that for me, knowing something at just a core concept, fundamental level is great. And like I basically speak in analogies.
Yeah.
Or like references. But that's because that is how I learn, you know? That is to me, that's like a really accessible way to communicate things to people. Trying to find a common ground. Like, oh, that's the equivalent to this. That's the equivalent. And again, core concept. If you can communicate the core concept to somebody, it makes things vastly more understandable. Yeah. And that's the whole idea.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like once you articulate that core conversation, so to speak, then you can get in deep. Yeah. And that's one of my big problems as well, is where I'm like, I have all these ideas and I want to do this and this and this, but I struggle to actually articulate where I'm at.
Yeah. So last year, yes, we had a team call and we made a list of everything we wanted to do, whether it was contest to sponsor, programs to put out, everything. And the list was so long. And me, ignorantly, I was like, we are going to have so much stuff to put out and do and this and that. But like 3 months after that team call, it's like, this is actually too much.
Yeah.
Like we're going to spread ourselves so thin that like, it's going to distill everything.
And that's
or dilute everything.
Yes. And that's part of the problem. And that was a hard lesson for me, where when I finally took my warehouse manager, Devin, in, and he started doing the orders and packing stuff and warehouse management, I'm like, the fuck do I do with my day now?
Yeah.
I was so focused on that.
Yeah.
And then, it took me a couple of months and I started pulling back more to be, okay, well, now I can focus on this and I can focus on this and I can push the business forward here because now I have time to actually think,
Yeah. And that was, again, and all of that stuff also led to why it was like clearly time to bring on somebody to help with the social media stuff.
Yeah.
Because even though like I'd go through periods where I'm like, all right, I got a month of stuff lined up, scheduled, but then maybe not the next month, but like a month or two later, it's past my bedtime. Yeah. I still say bedtime, but like it's past the time I need to be in bed to get enough sleep.
Yeah.
And I'm like dozing off on Canva. And even though I've got it written down what we need to make or create, I'm still like, I am in such a fog. And it was like, okay, we need a social media manager. And like, that's like, once we interviewed everybody, even though I kind of knew in my head we were going to pick Kelly anyway, but it was like, this is going to free me up to focus on more time into my existing clients, more time into just clients. And then also time into, trying to think broader vision, work on our scope and exposure,
growing.
Yeah, just growing. Yeah. Like, and like funneling my sort of nebulous ideas through the team, but also to Kelly of like, let's matriculate that into the content.
Well, because it then makes it, to put it into the content. Now it's an ability to actually utilize it and implement it. And, whatever other word you want to say.
Yeah. And well, again, closing the loop on everything. Like we did a lot of stuff last year and some stuff went awesome. Some stuff didn't go well at all.
Yeah.
Some stuff we didn't get anything out of. And now it's like, we have a very like, again, I'm not trying to sound like I work at a university, but we've got like data points on like, this is what reliably works. Mm-hmm. So this will be our baseline of type of stuff. And then where is the gray area of things that maybe we just like to do that we see a benefit from, but we still get a lot of enjoyment. So like for us, like our merch does great.
Yeah.
Some of that credit is because of my tattoo skill and my artwork and stuff. And I like have a really good understanding of like, I think like, how can I do stuff that'll appeal to people that isn't goofy looking, if I'm being honest. But like, we're not an apparel company. We're like a programming resource.
Yes.
But we get so much out of seeing those shirts at shows.
Sure. Yeah.
And just, the fact that people like, they aren't coached by us, but like Flash, he coaches all the coaches on Stronger Together. That dude's got every Stronger Together shirt and he's gotten them before I even started working with him, and like, that just means a lot.
Well, it's the support. It's like,
and like
it's that whole thing of like support those who support you.
Yeah. And like, obviously like market awareness or whatever you want to call it is huge. So like just seeing that shirt a lot in theory is going to create the subconscious thing that'll put us in the queue for people maybe looking for programming or coaching.
Yeah.
But I just get a lot out of seeing the shirts, man.
Yeah.
Like on an emotional level, again, I spent my whole life alone and the fucking team is called Stronger Together. And I'm going to sound like a broken record, but like, that's not a brand for me. That is my goal in life.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Like, and at the, sorry,
You're good.
at the Arnold this year, at the end of at the end of the weekend, me and everyone on the team, and then Josh Kaluski, he's not officially a part of the team, but he's our consigliere. Yeah. We were all together, and Will, my old coach, was there, and Trey was there, and Lane was there, and everyone's wives and girlfriends. And, the goal was to win. I didn't win, but I got a podium again. And I also felt mentally and emotionally the best I've ever felt at a competition. And Lane, my wife, who is my best friend, and I mean that like in every possible version of that, like, she was so proud of me, not for the podium, but she like took me aside at dinner and she was like, you have brought together the best people in the sport together for like, you've brought the best people in the world together. The best like people, not the best athletes, the best coaches. You've brought the best people together. And I was like, yeah, I'm really lucky. And she's like, no, you're not lucky. You are doing it. We're all here together because of you. And the like very obvious fact of that is because I didn't have that as a kid. And like, as cheesy as it sounds, I used to watch that movie The Sandlot as a kid. And that's all I wanted. Me and my friends, and we're just together. And like this weekend, like, yeah, like it's getting me ready for OSG. I got hands-on time with my coach. Like we got some great cues, but like, I do wish Lane was here, but like sharing like us having the house together and just riding around getting coffee and training and like, that's,
it's important.
Yeah, that's like, I didn't get to have
That's
that
life.
because I didn't have siblings. I didn't have friends until I was 12 years old.
Yeah.
And even though I got real lucky that I've got those friends that I met in Virginia at 12, I spent like 12 years of my life alone, and all I want to do is do the things I love with the people I love.
I think that's all we really
and that's
should.
everybody.
That's all we should really be striving for in life.
Yeah, and that's not I'm not saying that in this like revelatory way, but like as much time as I spend alone, it is in service that like it's because all I want to do is be with the people I care about, and I want everyone I care about to be okay.
Yeah.
And like, that's it. Stronger together. That's it. And like, people filling out our intake form. And I handle the intake form and all that stuff. And I usually do first intro calls with people, and then hey, who's got time? Or if they don't have a coach in mind, I'll be like, maybe you should talk to Ross, maybe you should talk to Andrew.
Yeah.
But like, when people are like, I get them on the phone and they're like, I'm like, do you have anyone in mind? And they're like, no, I just believe in like everything you guys put out, and I see you guys together, and I see you with your athletes. And, you know, almost all of them have either bought one of our pre-made programs or they were on the team.
Yeah.
So they already have a good idea of the actual programming. They're like, I want to be a part of the thing.
Yeah.
And they're like the sort of message or whatever you want to call it. And that just, every fucking time I have to mute my phone and like do what I'm doing right now, where I have to like take a moment and collect myself. Not because I'm like afraid of showing emotion, but like, I'm talking to this person on the phone for the first time. I can't cry for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
We'll do that at their contest.
We'll do the second call.
Yeah, second call. But like, it is everything to me.
I love
Like
it.
everything, man. And like, even like, again, this is not revelatory and not that other people, but like, I'm the guy like, hey, how are we doing? Like, even like I fucking talk to Heinous in the group chat every day.
Yeah.
Either business stuff or like, here's a meme. But like, if him and I haven't talked in a couple of weeks, like, hey, how are we doing?
Yeah.
How's Lexi?
I
Like,
don't think there's
drop me a voice note.
There's enough of that.
Yeah.
There's not enough of that, especially, you know, without being all melodramatic or whatever you want to call it. Especially, I think there's enough of that within guys.
No.
We don't want, like, it's like, you know, I don't know how it is for females, but it's like, you know, we don't talk. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's like, me learning to be confident in myself is a big part of the stuff with my psychologist, Amelia.
Yeah.
But like, that was like one of the first things Lane told me when we got together was like, because we were friends for almost 2 years before she told me she cared for me. And I fell in love with her the moment I met her. But she was like, I know that I never have to worry that I don't know what's going on with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I am not stoic. And you guys have been around me enough to know, obviously.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I am dramatic. But like, and this isn't me like, I tell it how it is, but like, I just don't have a poker face, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. If I have a poker face, that means something bad is going on. Like bad.
Yeah.
Because the only times I've done it are when things are really bad.
Sure. Yeah.
And that's not a tough guy thing. That means like when I lost my dad.
Yep.
I had a poker face. Or like when I like have lost a job. You know what I mean? Things it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
Or I'm about to get into a fight.
Yeah.
But like 99.9999 times, like, I don't have a poker face, man. I'm just gonna. Now there are times where like I'm like, hey, I just need a minute.
Yes.
And I gotta digest it and give it to you, but not in the big way.
Yeah.
Not in the raw way.
Yeah.
Let me sit with it. You know, it's like just like after a contest. Let me sit on this for a day or two.
You have to decompress. You have to process.
But yeah, man, I'm not stoic. Like, I literally cannot function that way. And again, it is a lot of that has to do with that teacher.
Yeah.
And like, cause like, dude, it's not like she sat me down, like A is for apple, B is for boy. It was like throwing shit, like, fuck it. I don't need to learn. I'll figure it out. It's like, you won't.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to survive without knowing how to read, dude.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, no, yeah, guys, we got to, I mean, I don't know, man, call it, you know, I've been hearing this term like new masculinity or what, but like we gotta fuck talk, man. Like it's, whether your friends are not your therapist.
Fully
Full
agree.
stop.
Yeah, agreed.
Now, can they be supportive? Can they be an outlet? Yeah, like that, in my opinion, that's your job as your friend.
As a friend, yes.
To be there as support, for accountability, as just like an ear. Like to me, that is a part of being a friend.
I'd agree fully.
But yeah, man, like we got to do better. Cause there's the like less bad version that it's just like, there's that guy that he's just like a fucking bummer. And then there's the really bad version where like we're losing people.
Yeah.
And whether it's their self-harm or ending their own life, one and the same, or you have those friends that are just, they're hurting so much, so often that their life is just continually a mess. And, we can have that fucking argument of like, well, if they're this age, there's nothing's going to change. It's like, I get that. I do. But like, if you're my friend, I'm like the worst tattooer ever because I actually love talking to people, and it's really cool for tattooers to not, I don't like people. I don't like talking to people. Like, you picked the wrong fucking job, dude.
No shit.
I love being with people
all day.
Love talking with people. I love bullshitting. I'm very sociable. Like, so like I have a lot of people I'm very friendly with. I have a lot of people that are like, shorthand, I'm going to say we're friends, but the people I'm friends with, like, I'm not giving up on you, man. Like, and but that's like hard for me because I'll get so invested in someone or their stuff that I let it pull away from me sometimes. That's not their fault. That's mine.
Yeah.
But like, if anybody I call it the A-list, anytime, anywhere, always. Anyone on the A-list calls and they're like, I need help or I want to do this or do that. I'm like, you're my friend, so that means I believe you can do it.
Yeah.
So like, what do you need?
Yeah.
Let's fucking make it happen. And like, it's my three best friends, Tyler, Alex, and Jones, they like, tell me all the time, like, they're like, we were so worried that like once we left high school, they're like, we were going to lose you. And they're like, you always called. Yeah. You always checked in on us. And like, they did the same for me. And like, there was time where none of us lived near one another.
Yeah.
But there was always consistent contact. And like, knowing that they were a phone call away, even if I didn't call them, like knowing that, like, because that, like, even if like you have like a lot of pivotal moments as a younger adult, and I think the term is like adultified. So like at a very young age, I was able to like clothe, feed, bathe, basically sustain my like human carcass.
Yes.
But I was still really immature in like emotional ways. So like that 17 to 20, things can still take a fucking rough turn.
Yeah.
And like the guys, like one of them just got married and he was like, we all were so scared we were going to lose you. And they were like, not because we thought that you were like on the edge of anything, but we knew that like when we all left and we were all apart, that like
almost like you'd revert.
Yeah. And like hearing them tell me like how proud they are of me. And like when I met Lane, and like even when we bought our first house in 22, because like I never actually lived in a house until I was in my 20s. It was all like apartments or like income-based housing. And it wasn't like it wasn't that like contrived sort of like, oh, we were all worried about you. It was like, we knew you could do it. And we're so proud that you did. And, cause like one of my biggest fear is I'm going to end up like my mom.
Yeah.
And, you know, whether it's the teacher that helped me or that like I had just enough of my dad or my grandparents around or all of it and something just in me, like knowing that I had them there, even if I didn't call, even when I didn't call, knowing I had them there, like carried me through that.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've got to do better, man. And
I think that
sucks.
Yeah, like what I was going to say was like, you know, I think it's so easy to revert, especially when you've been through something traumatic at any stage in life.
Yeah.
But but very much so when it's developmental stuff, either young teenagers or even like me, like my dad passed like two months after I turned 21. And it's so easy to say, fuck it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's so easy just to step back and say, fuck it. And I've told Michelle this, like, hey, if this doesn't work out, I'm going to be in a cabin alone in the woods with a dog. And that's it. And I joke about it, but the scary part of it is that I know I could do it and be completely fine.
Yep.
And that is a little scary to think about, you know?
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Like when I
think you then lose your humanity.
Yes. Because you're shutting yourself off.
Shut everything
and
off.
That's what that is.
Yep.
And like,
we're here to connect.
yeah,
People
man.
forget that.
Yeah. Like we're supposed to, we're not meant to be isolated forever.
No,
we isolate ourselves to go through and experience a thing, but it's to come out the other side to be a part of the tribe.
Yeah.
And like to help the other people with the experiences that we had.
Yeah.
And like when I feel you know, like, dude, I got the fucking awesome, I have like the literal woman that I spent my life looking for. That's what I tell people. Like, Lane is everything I needed and wanted out of somebody my whole life. And I fucking love her. And I wake up every fucking day knowing that, like, even on my best day, as long as I'm me, I'm enough. And that, like, does so much for me that, like, when I feel real cornered, though, like, there's that part of me that's like, I just want to be in an apartment alone, like above a bar or like a fucking diner.
Yep.
And I want to go down there and eat like one meal a day and just be alone and stare at a wall. Or like, again, I don't know when this is coming out, but like had a rough training week, you know, first rough training week in a minute. And I was like, if this happens, I'm done. And like, I didn't mean competing. I was like, I'm going to give Stronger Together to Ross. I'm going to tell all my clients goodbye and no one's going to hear from me again.
Yeah.
And it was like, that is so fucking stupid. On like multitudes of levels.
Mm-hmm.
One, that is not a sustainable mindset. If the OSG prize money was like, fuck you money, you know, like $1 million-ish or some like actual wealth.
Yeah.
Be like, oh, might be for a month or two, maybe, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But like, this is not, one, it ain't.
Yeah.
Two, again, I want to do this for a long time. And like, that is not sustainable or healthy and just fucking stupid, you know? Like, but that's that fear and from being alone. And like, again, you got to go through the trials. Mm-hmm. But the whole fucking point is so you can relay that to somebody else. You know what I mean? Like closing the loop with Strongman, like I'm very aware of like the narrative about me in terms of an athlete.
Mhm.
Oh, he's fast. Oh, he's so athletic. This and that. He's good better at deadlifting. But like none of that. Like I was so raw when I got with Will.
Mhm.
Like it was obvious I had like power,
Sure.
you know, like there was like at a metabolic level, my body could do things, but I was not athletic. It was fucking rough.
Yeah.
And like Will, like helping me to harness and build and do that on a longer timeline, on a sustainable timeline, and like, again, investing in me.
Yeah.
But not at the sacrifice of my marriage or my job. Like that was off the back of him, in his own words, doing a lot of things wrong.
Yeah.
You know? And like, that's the whole fucking point, man. So when someone comes to us, I'll say us, and that like, because we have a lot of 80 and 90 kilo athletes, which makes sense. We're
Yeah.
80 and 90 kilo,
Yeah.
like that's our class.
Mhm.
We have more 105s and opens, but we get a lot of 80s and 90s.
Makes sense.
And they're like, I want to be there with you.
Yeah.
Which that just fucking kills me. I'm like, fuck. They're like, I just want to be there with you one day at the Arnold. I want to side by side competing together.
Yeah.
And like, I take that as like a very serious responsibility of not just to get results, but like, what did me and Will do for years that definitely worked? What didn't work as much? But like, that's the whole point, man. Like, to pass it on and to help other people, you know? Are there maybe some times where certain things like, let's maybe keep this in-house? That's just part of it.
Yeah.
In a competitive sport.
Part of being an athlete.
Yeah, it's part of being an
I mean, I've
athlete.
been there multiple times where it's like, you
Yeah.
know, oh,
Whether it's
this is my trick. I ain't sharing that. So
exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
figure it out
Gatekeeper.
yourself.
Yeah. This
I'll tell you after the contest.
Yeah, this is ST proprietary blend
Yes.
here.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, you know, and it's very apparent whose department is what with Stronger Together. Andrew, let's help. Hey, send us a back toss video.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, Ross, watch this deadlift video for me. What do
Sure.
you see? That's
Yes.
Ross gets so many videos from me. Hey, what do you see?
Yeah.
Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
And you know, like, hey, Cody, what are just some split jerk stuff? Or like, hey, they don't have all the implements for the medley.
How can we get around it?
What can we do? What can we do? Like, they've got a slider and assault bike. I'm like,
Mhm.
Yeah.
got it.
Yeah.
That's
Well, it's just going on again what you're saying. It's stronger together. It's
Yeah.
the team. It's playing to each other's strengths and all that
Yeah,
sort of
man.
stuff.
And knowing your weaknesses and when you
100%.
do need help. from
yeah,
other-
dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
coaches.
Dude, the amount I have learned from working with Ross
Mhm.
alongside Ross, dude, it has taught me so much of what I was doing. I'm not going to say wrong, but not quite right.
Yeah. I know.
But
what you mean.
also
Yeah.
reinforced all these
Things-
other ideas
Yes.
too.
Yes.
And like, even when him and I have conversations and confidence of like, I'm worried I'm not, even though I am actively trying to read more books and like seek out either certs or classes that are actually helpful and not just a thing on the wall.
Yeah.
He's like, you're doing good.
Yeah.
He's, you know, I definitely like have both of them like check my work.
Sure.
It's just,
Yeah.
is the idea here at least makes sense. It's
Yeah.
a logic track.
Yes. Yes.
And like sharing that with them, like that, I get so buzzed about it, man. Like, I love it. It's like literally what I live for.
I love it, dude.
Yeah, man. And I'm just so grateful to have them in my life. And like, dude, I think I've seen Ross like 4 or 5 times this year.
Yeah.
Like,
I have to actually.
yeah,
I know, right?
I was like, wait.
but like, Alex, one of the 3 best friends, like we live 20 minutes from each other. I don't I don't know if I've seen him 5 times this year.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the hard thing for me with having friends across the sea now.
Oh, yeah.
Or spirited around
Yeah.
because of strongman.
Yep.
That's hard for me at times.
Yeah, it sucks.
Because then it perpetuates my isolation.
Yep.
From a perspective of,
Because it's so easy.
it's so easy to just be like, get up in the morning, come to work or work from home.
Yep.
Go home, like train, go home, see my wife, go to bed, get up.
Yeah.
So I try and force, like, hey, let's go hang out with these friends today or this weekend. Hey, I need to get on the phone to so-and-so.
Yeah.
Like just through this conversation, I'm like, shit, I got to text Tom one of my best friends in Scotland. It's like, I got to text Thomas.
I mean, I do, when I get into like the thick of it with training, funny enough, it's not really in the peaks. It's in those like month or two, like in the build, the volume off-season stuff. I think I get a little bit more myopic then in some ways. But now I know that.
You can combat it now.
And I combat it, and like I'll tell Lane, like, hey, let's do something Sunday with, and like anyone that's close in our lives knows I do strongman. And because everyone in our life is awesome, they ask.
Yes.
But I'm like, one, we just need to be out spending more time with people.
Sure.
Two, like, I also want time around not people that are in strongman.
That was part,
and that's to just round out my life, man, and like feel normal and like
it was that for so long. It was strongman oriented.
Yeah,
for I have no idea how long.
Yeah,
a decade.
Oh, dude, I know what my life is like now, so I can't imagine with you in this.
I'm not even talking business. I'm talking when I was competing.
Yeah,
like realistically, like as soon as I started dating Michelle, like 3.5 years ago, and I started, hey, we're gonna go hang out with so and so or so.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, like this is nice because it's like you're not talking strongman, you're talking whatever.
Yeah. Or if you do talk about strongman, it's in such a like, again, fundamental way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It can like, it's happened to me where I've like sort of uncovered things about strongman for myself.
Yeah.
On like a personal level.
The nice thing for me is because, especially with having the business, I feel like when I get into like a strongman arena, whether it's nationals or OSG, whatever, it's so encompassing.
Yeah.
That it's so nice. Like 3 of my close friends now they're all in law enforcement.
Yeah.
So we'll go to the lake and the 3 of them are sitting talking, like one's DOC, one's a marshal, one's a local cop, and they're all sitting talking and stuff. And I'm just sitting being. And I'm part of the conversation.
Yeah.
But I'm not talking.
Yeah.
I'm just taking it in. And it's so nice to be in an environment where it's like, I don't need to
you get to feel
contribute
new too.
type of thing because it's like,
and you can ask questions and be inquisitive.
Exactly.
And like, dude, when we hang out with like, especially with like Lane's, her friends are my friends are her friends, but like Lane's friends that she's been friends with before we met, like I anyone that's like really into or really good at anything, I'm always fascinated with.
Yeah.
So I'm always like, letting them talk. But like asking questions. Oh, what is that? What do they do? What's that about?
Yes.
Like, I like that stuff.
Me too.
It's cool. It's super interesting.
And I think that's part of my problem where at times where it's like, I've been involved in strongman for almost 20 years.
Oh, whoa.
So it's been a massive part of my life.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to experience other things.
It also makes it, when you come back, I think better too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap it up.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Dude, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That's our longest
kept going.
podcast.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I could keep going. But
it's a good topic.
Yeah. It's like, there's so much to talk and there's so many little tangents.
Yeah.
But we just have to do it again.
We'll do it again.
So before you leave, tell everyone where they can find you, Stronger Together, yourself, tattooing.
Yeah. So, my tattoo work profile is just Cody Abell. I work at Tattoo Paradise in Maryland and DC. Athlete profile, coaching profile is just Strongest Tattooer. But if you want to just see the team, it's just the Stronger Together. Me, Ross, Andrew, Kelly. We are not capped at the moment, but we're close. And sponsored by you guys. And that's that. Instagram is the main spot, like the website is the Stronger Together, but the Instagram is the best place to do it. If anyone has any questions, like just shoot us a DM, shoot me, just hit up one of the guys or us. We have an intake form, but you know, I mean, we're not really like, we're probably never going to be the guys like, don't DM me, hit an email, like whatever, man, just hit us up. If you have questions, we do like a lot of consulting. And what I mean by that is like, we will do like single lift coaching, but like we've been doing a lot of like, broad consulting of like, they either have a coach or like an athlete and their coach will come to us and be like, what do you think is like this broad thing?
It's like a second opinion.
Yeah.
A little bit of a different perspective.
And we've been doing a lot of that. And it's been going really good, but check out the team program and it's just year-round training, more GPP based. And then we do individual coaching for obviously the individual and like getting you ready for competitions and stuff. And yeah, man. And we're all doing OSG in a couple of weeks.
I'm excited.
Yeah, man.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah. And then come March, there might be 15 of us in at coaches and athletes.
Wow.
So we're actually already planning the logistics now.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
God.
At the Arnold?
Yeah.
It's going to be a lot.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Andrew Haynes, Ross Remillard, Cody Abell, Kelly Plush. Check us out, man.
Thank you, man. Very much appreciate you coming on.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Sir.